Hi, this is Attorney Doug Jones. Today I'm going to be talking about some asset protection strategies for seniors. These are not the only asset protection strategies available out there, but there are three strategies that are commonly and effectively used for seniors who want to protect some of their assets. Most of the time, they're wanting to protect assets from spin down due to a long-term care stay, like a nursing home stay. And for reference purposes, we're going to use a couple of boxes. The one with holes in it is going to represent a revocable, and we're going to be comparing and contrasting those two. Let's start off with talking about what these two trusts have in common. They're both very effective if they're funded properly at protecting assets from having to go through probate when you die. A lot of times people just have a will or worse, they have nothing at all. I think the latest statistics I've seen say between 50 and 70% of the individuals out there have no estate planning at all. So if you have anything, you're in the elite few that do have something. A revocable living trust is a good way to protect assets from going through probate. You can also say who you want to receive the assets when you die. You can also do that with the irrevocable trust. And with both of the trusts, you can name a trustee. With the revocable living trust, you are usually your own initial trustee. If you're married, it may be husband and wife, co-trustees of the trust. A revocable living trust is very flexible. It allows you to change your mind later on in life. You can change who you want to be successor trustee. You can even change distributions in most cases. Compare that to an irrevocable trust, which is asset protection strategy number one. It's a box with a solid top. You put your assets in there, you close the top, and they're there. It's irrevocable. And by and large, unchangeable. If you change your mind down the road, you may not be able to change it. But the big thing about an irrevocable trust is the assets you put in an irrevocable trust are not available to you. You mean if I put assets in my irrevocable trust, I can't get them back out? I can't use that money for my own care? That's right. Why would anybody do that? Well, the reason most people use an irrevocable trust is to, in effect, take assets off the table to make them purposely not available to them. If you go to a nursing home and apply for Medicaid, one thing that is looked at is what assets are available to you. Anything in your revocable trust is available to you, and anything in your irrevocable trust is not available to you. Very important distinction. Anything that is available to you may be considered a countable asset. In other words, may have to be spent down before you could qualify for Medicaid assistance. So that's kind of a biggie. That's why you have legacy assets such as grandpa's farm and he left it to dad and he left it to you. And now the farm is in your name. You want to do something to protect that so you can pass it down. Then you may want to look at doing an irrevocable trust just to take it off the table so that when you die, it will pass down to the kids. But again, whatever you put in an irrevocable trust needs to be something that you're not going to need. You don't want to put your butter and egg money in an irrevocable trust because you're going to need that money to buy butter and eggs in the future. You just want to put what I call legacy assets, something that you're not going to need, you're not going to spend, not going to use for your own care in the future. This is one huge and effective asset protection strategy. But one big catch, other than it not being available to you, is a 5-year look back rule. Any assets that you put in an irrevocable trust may be counted if they were put in there within 5 years. All right. So, irrevocable trust asset protection strategy number one. Strategy number two are exempt assets or assets that you can just take off the table that are not counted in the event that you apply for Medicaid. One big exempt asset, your home, but you must take actions to protect the home to keep DHS from recouping on it after you die. But the home is a big exempt asset. One vehicle's exempt. Irrevocable prepaid burial contract is exempt if you bought a burial policy and you've paid for it in advance. And personal assets at home are exempt. This is huge. Some of you have heard me tell my Sally story. Sally got some bad information when her husband Sam went to the nursing home, spent all of their money, and she took out a home equity loan on her home and she spent that money. And now finally Sam was getting the care he needed, but Sally was 78 years old, broke and deep in debt, and it didn't have to be that way. She could have exempted that home, not taking out that home equity loan. And matter of fact, with some planning, she could have protected a lot of her assets. So exempt assets, again, home, car, prepaid burial, personal assets at home. Everything else is countable. But Sally, an example I just mentioned, could have protected and preserved a lot of assets. She didn't know. Nobody told her. She got some bad information, cost her a lot of money. And so one of the reasons we're talking today is so that you don't make the same mistake that Sally made. All right, teardrop strategy number 3, and I just referred to it, is asset division. And Sally certainly didn't know this. You know, there's laws in place to prevent spousal impoverishment, but most spouses don't know that. Certainly Sally didn't know. She just spent everything down. She didn't have to do that. She could have divided assets, put some of it over in her name, some in her husband's name. And doing that in combination with the exempt versus countable strategy that we talked about earlier would have helped her preserve most of her assets. But Sally could have even taken it a step further when she divided assets, some in her name, some in Sam's name. Sam's portion of assets would not have to have been spent down for his care, but could have been preserved for her had some effective planning been done. In many cases, at-home spouses can protect and preserve most of the couple's hard-earned assets for their benefit. So these are just 3 strategies that can be used. If you have a loved one in the nursing home now just paying out of pocket, there may still be something that can be done to help preserve assets. If there's a spouse at home and they're just spending down all of the money, you don't want to leave the spouse at home destitute. Also, in a situation where someone is going to the nursing home soon, whether they're single or married, actions need to be taken to protect as many of the assets as possible. And it's important to start the planning process as early as possible. If we can help you with that process, please give us a call. Our phone number is 501-843-9014. I'm attorney Doug Jones. Thank you for watching today. I look forward to visiting with you soon.